Hi, my name's Michael. I work for the Products Division on Geocortex Inline. I'm here to give you a deep dive on the Inline Designer.
Okay, so today we're going to go over advanced view creation in the Inline Designer. The first thing you want to do is add a new band to your view. The bands will contain all the charts, and the charts contain all the data displayed in your view. After you've created a band, you want to give it a name. So we'll call this one ILI data. Oops. And we also want to give it a short name, and so we're just going to call this one ILI. The short name is just what shows up in this little bubble here to make your band quickly accessible and recognizable. Once we've done that, we can add charts to the band. So we're just going to add one chart right now. And with the chart added, the first thing you do is select a data source. So the data sources can be configured however you want, as many as you want. Charts will not work without a data source configured. So we're going to choose this ILI data 2016. Once that's done, the next thing you want to do is add a Y value. You have a couple options here. You can either add a Y value, which is just a number, an integer. So we could just put in just a 0, or we could add a Y value field, and that's going to be a field on your data source. So if we use this orientation here, then it's going to use the orientation field described at this data source. The other option we have is to hit this advanced tab, and then it allows us to enter in a function. This function it's not quite a JavaScript function, it's an ArcGIS arcade function. They use very, very similar syntax, and there's a documentation available on ArcGIS's website. There's a lot of helper functions that they've got, as well as how to get started, and they've got a little bit of a playground where you can test out some functions. So with that, we're going to create our function. And what this function is it uses the same field from the data source that we could use for a regular field, but it then takes the value returned from that and divides it by 30. So this syntax here, this D with a square bracket and then a string inside of it, that's how you access fields within functions in the Inline Designer. And you'll see that come up in a couple other places. Once that's done, you're going to want to choose a chart type, and you can choose any of these 3 chart types. Different data sources will work with different chart types. Linear specifically requires a begin and end point, versus line and scatter, which just need one single point. So for this specific data source, we're going to choose scatter. And once that's done, we can go into the chart display options, which will let us customize what the chart looks like. So once we're in here, we'll have a couple different options. We have the symbol color, the symbol size, and shape, as well as the border color. We can change any of these on the fly, and it will get immediate feedback here in the designer to see what it's going to look like. But we also have the option to hit the advanced button on any one of these fields, and this will allow us to put in a function just like we did before and really get things looking unique. Using these functions will allow us to create much more intricate charts and designs. We can have symbols of different types appear in different spots instead of just having these static values. So I'm going to just create this function right here, and this function will allow us to have different colors of symbols in our charts here. So if we start at the top there, we declare a couple variables just based on the fields in the data source, the same way we did before. And then we go into an if-else chain here, and we're using this when syntax, which is very similar to if-else. It just has a condition, and then if the condition is true, we get the first value. If it's false, we get the second. We're also using the write function, and that function will take the characters from the right side of a string, we're using the type variable that we declared earlier, as well as the 9 characters from the right, which if it matches corrosion, we're going to use this color. Otherwise, we'll use this color. And that's repeated for a couple different cases. After that, we can add a function for symbol size. And this function is very similar to the last one. We declare a variable. We use this max function that will take the largest of 2 numbers that you pass it. And then it's a simple if-else that will change the size of the symbol depending on how big the fields provided are. The next thing we can do is add a function for the symbol shape. And the symbol shape is, and it's another if-else, but the symbol shape has a couple reserved keywords that we can use. So if we use circle, we're going to get a circle. There's cross, there's square, there's diamond. There's also a triangle. There's triangle hyphen down. There is valve, and I believe there's star. And you can use any one of those strings to select the different symbols provided here. After that, we can add a function for the symbol border color, and that's going to be just a quick simple when function. This is doing the same thing I described before. When the depth is less than 40, we're going to return one color, else we're going to return another. And finally, we'll add a similar function for the border width. And that's just setting a thicker or thinner width depending on the depth. So if we back out of here again, back to the chart options. Once we're in here, we can add a text function for the tooltip. The tooltip is just this little thing that pops up when you hover over a value. Right now it's just displaying the Y value of the point, but we can have it display custom values. So we're just going to use this function here, and this is still using that field accessor, as well as some string concatenation and this round function that was just going to round a number to the closest integer. And this will generally just return a simple string. You can make it as intricate as you want as long as it's returning some sort of string value. Finally, we can customize the y-axis of the chart. And to do that, we can go back to the band options, and we can go to this y-axis options section. And we've got 3 options here: auto, custom, and hide. Auto is going to automatically generate the y-axis based on the data provided. Custom will let us set our own values, and hide will just not show it at all. So if we switch it to custom, we're given this min max here to be able to choose the range of our data. So we're going to change this one to 12, and then steps is just how many points you want to display. We're going to drop that down to 5, and then we want to hit this reset step values, and that's just going to put our steps back in a nice position between our min and our max. And so now we've got it going up by 3. And one other thing we can do with these step values is we can change the number to display any sort of string we want. So we can set this one just to be low, and we can set this one to be high, and we'll see it change over here. We can also change where the values are. So this one's at 9, but we can change it to be at 10 if we wanted to. And now you can see it's a little bit squished up there. So change that back to 9, and then that's good. Finally, you'll notice that a lot of the functions that we applied didn't actually show up any changes here in the designer. That's because the designer doesn't evaluate most of the functions for you, so it's just going to assume default values when you enter functions. In order to test that your functions work, you can go over here to Info and hit Run in Sandbox, and this is going to run a live preview of your view. Once it loads in, we can enter our route name. We can choose a start value and an end value. And then we can see that all our functions are applied. We've got our different shapes, we've got our different colors and our different borders over here, as well as our y-axis is matching the configuration that we set earlier. We've got our tooltip function showing up correctly, and it looks like everything is working. So that was just some of the things that you could do with functions in the Inline Designer. There's a lot of other stuff you can do. Esri has a lot of documentation on other functions that you can use. They're all supported within the designer. It's just up to you with how creative you want to be. So try it out when you can, and good luck.